I had to get something peppy to play.
I love that. I love it. I was like,
Julian Primeaux is his name.
okay.
He is a fantastic musician. He just got inducted this past year into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame.
Uh-huh.
He's the same age as my son, or within a year or two above or behind. I'm not sure. And they're friends. They met through my son's work.
Okay.
And when I heard him do this song at an event, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for the channel. So I messaged him and I'm like, Julian, can I please use your music for my channel?
And he agreed?
Like, yeah, sure. He agreed. He was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I said, well, send me the proper way to tag it. So YouTube doesn't come back on me and say,
right,
the copyright infringement. So I've got his permission. I've got the little thingy that I put. And he's a sweet guy. So he's very talented. Very, very talented. So anyway, okay, enough about the music.
Okay.
Welcome to Mastering Mental Wellness with Sir Isaac here, who is our professional in the house. And
I'm printing something so God. I can remember. So
yes, Morg, that actually did happen. Many, many years ago, and I was very pissed because it was a brand new purse and I lost the handle off of it. The alligator got the handle and I got the purse. So I was sitting on a bench next to the swamp that we have on campus. This was back when I was a student. When I was a student. Now I wasn't even working there or anything. I was still a student there. And they had benches set out. Now they've got a fence that goes around it, but alligators can climb trees, much less a fence. And I was sitting there. I was reading something. I don't remember what I was reading, but I was into the book, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my purse like go zip down the bench seat. And I kind of turned and looked because I thought somebody maybe come up behind me was trying to steal my purse. And I didn't see anybody. And then I saw that tail whip from that alligator. He had grabbed the handle, the strap, because it was hanging off the bench. I don't know what he thought it was, but he was going for it. And I grabbed my purse, and he had the handle, and we had a tug of war. And the strap broke, and he crawled back in the water with the strap, and I saved the purse. But that actually happened. Yeah, that's probably been about 15, 20 years ago. They don't make purses like they used to, right?
You think he probably thought it was a snake?
I have no idea. I'm just glad he didn't decide my foot was the thing to grab. So
I know.
And we still have them that will crawl out every now and again. Next thing you know, everybody gets an alert bulletin on their email and their phone saying alligator loose at such and such hall. Stay away till the wranglers get there to put them back in the water. So, they can climb trees. People think, oh, an alligator's coming for me, I'll climb the tree. No, they climb trees. They can climb. Most people don't know this. So crocodiles are even worse. They're a lot bigger. But they're mean critters. So let's say hi Morg, hi Debbie, hi Dr. Han, hi Sandra. Let's see.
Hi everyone.
So today is how to find a good counselor.
Yes.
And because of the week that we've just had, Isaac and I wanted to make sure that, first off, everybody's doing okay mentally and emotionally. We're all upset. We're all mad as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But in the past, hey, Marby, hey, Maureen, on Friday, I was listening to a podcast, not within our community, just general. And it really amazed me how many people called in talking about they were just going to check out like permanently. They were going to go with this. They were terrified of being either rounded up and deported or put into death camps. That's what's going through people's minds. And so it hit me, okay, we need to talk about this. And so I texted Isaac, and he was like, I was just thinking the same thing. So it's like, great minds think alike. I mean, we're on the same page here.
Yes.
So, Isaac, I'm going to let you kind of take it away from here.
Okay.
And hi, Sylvia. And while I say hello to everybody and do your thing.
Okay.
So,
I guess, one thing I was almost about to say, this was a situational event, but this situation could last a long time. But what I would say, if you needed to talk to somebody, it's a good thing to reach out to a counselor. I saw someone wrote in the messages in the chat that counselors are not cheap, and that's true. That's very true. You could pay up to like $120 or more to get in with a counselor. If you have insurance, that may be better. But there's also counselors online, like BetterHelp. And in fact, I used to be a BetterHelp counselor, and they're very reasonable. You just have to I guess basically know what you want to talk to somebody about. It's really sitting down and sorting everything out, and the counselor can help you do that. It's like we really need to process. This is almost like it's a loss. We're probably going through a grieving process because we're all shocked, and that's a part of the grief process. They can help you walk through that. And what I would say is this is and I always encourage people to practice self-care. You must always take care of yourself because we don't know what situation is going to come up. But we want to be in a place where we can stop and deal with issues that come up, because issues come up all the time. There's nothing if we try to live our lives to avoid anything happening in our lives, it's going to be very limited. So what we do is we live our lives in such a way that we realize that if I have a problem, I will stop and I will deal with that issue. That's what I would encourage people to do. I would specifically say this: if you've never thought about getting a counselor, or if your counseling is talking to friends, talk to somebody. But a counselor would help you sort this out. Some people I've had some people say, oh, my problem is so big, I'm going to go to a psychiatrist. And you got to place your issue in the proper perspective. It may be really difficult, but most psychiatrists are not going to sit down and do therapy. And if they did, you probably would not be able to afford it. Most psychiatrists
are the MDs, right? They're the ones that
dole
out the pills and
right.
commit
They're going to prescribe
asylums and whatnot. They're the heavy hitters.
And some people get very disappointed when they go to a psychiatrist. They say, he didn't talk to me for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's about it. That's about how long they talk to you. They're trying to get information. They're looking for certain things and listening for certain behaviors, looking for certain, I guess, behavioral things that you're doing in the session. And some people say, oh, okay, mine is so serious, I'm going to go to a psychologist. Just about the same thing. Most psychologists, they will not do therapy. They're probably doing testing, something like that.
Research
Uh,
groups,
yes, yes,
stuff like
because
that. Yeah.
so it would be best to go into a counselor, and just because you go in with a counselor, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with that person. Certain, if it were me, things that I would look for if I had a counselor is if the person was, I'm, I think I'm more solution focused. If they're able to get me to a point where I can calm down enough to start working on my issue, that would be good for me. Some people, they want to feel the counselor to help them to feel more comfortable, safe, build rapport.
Hmm.
Some people need that. There's no right or wrong. It's just what works for you. And that's what I would say
It's,
to you.
it's kind of similar to somebody who does like Akashic record readings,
Mhm,
because their goal is to go into the Akashic records, have you go in and face old things, whether it happened in your lifetime or another,
mhm.
to deal with
Uh,
it, cut that cord,
uh-huh.
and walk away from it. Um,
Oh, I
Now
like
that
that,
works for
Sherry.
some people, and it
Mhm.
doesn't with other people.
I
It's
like
just
that.
but it's most readers, most intuitives,
Mhm,
in many ways, we're kind of like mini counselors, because
mhm,
we spend our time going in and reading the energy,
mhm,
and then have to
mhm,
process the information we're being given
mhm,
to try to help somebody who's very upset, or whatever the case may be. I mean, you don't just come right out and say, oh well, yeah, you effed up, so tough luck, Charlie. I mean,
mhm,
we don't put it that way. It might take us half an hour to get to that
mhm,
terminology. Well, not to that
mhm,
terminology, but to get you
mhm,
to that point to
mhm,
realize, oh, I've made a really bad mistake here, and I need to fix it. You
mhm,
know, um,
mhm,
that's kind of how I see a lot of us. I know
mhm,
a lot of readers and intuitives and empaths have, as part of their bio, uh, uh, wellness counseling or
mhm.
coaching or that
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Mhm,
where they help kind of talk you through a situation,
mhm,
see all sides, and get
mhm,
you out the door on the other side of it.
mhm,
Um, and that's basically how they operate.
mhm,
From That's how we kind of operate. Like I
mhm,
said, since Wednesday, my phone has been going nuts
mhm,
off the hook,
mhm,
and I have spent all my time calming people down,
mhm.
telling them checking out is not an option,
Right.
and to just take a deep breath, and
Mhm, mhm,
and just let's see what happens.
mhm.
Don't do anything rash. Don't make any
Right.
rash moves or
Mhm,
rash decisions
mhm,
that a
mhm,
month from now you might regret,
mhm. Right.
or hell, even a week from now.
Yeah.
But to just kind of step back and
Mhm,
reevaluate, I guess,
mhm,
which
mhm,
is what you were saying.
mhm,
A good counselor is going to walk you through these steps.
mhm, mhm.
And see, he's got the down to perfect.
Well, you Sherry, this is what I would say to you. I think a reason why we hear that in counselors a lot is because we're waiting for the person to get it. We all have the information on board. We know exactly what's going on with us. We know what unresolved issue we're struggling with. We don't always see what triggers those unresolved issues, because
Right.
this has
Right.
probably triggered a lot of unresolved issues with people. And that's why counselors are saying, yes, yeah, tell me more. Because you got the answer inside and you have to bring it out. You have to talk about it. And that's why you will
Right.
go to a counselor for one thing, and then you're working on something that you think is totally unrelated. But really it's like an we are so um mm, I don't want to say unaware. We want to feel, we want to feel good. We want to feel okay. But we think that if I face this issue of being rejected
Abandoned,
or
abused,
abandoned,
beaten,
abused,
or
whatever it is, if I face that
yeah.
issue, I'm going to feel bad. And no, you felt bad while you were going through it. Talking about it is going to help you come out of it. And what we tend
Yeah.
to do is we think, I'm never going to talk about it. And so we're carrying it around. It's almost like running a program in the background of your computer, and you can't figure out why the computer is slow. Well, you got all these tabs open running in the background because all they do is attach to other issues. One
Right.
thing that I told several people, not last, yeah, the week before last. And I had to sit down and I had to run it through my head. And this is what I printed out at the beginning. And to improve efficiency, make a conscious practice of releasing frustration quickly. If you can release the frustration, you can go to the next step. But what we
Yeah.
do is we tend to hold on to it. And I think somehow we think that this is so terrible. It happened to me. And but what I would notice was, if you tell that to an elderly person who's had a lot of experience, or somebody who's had a lot of experience in life, you know what they'll say? They'll say, let it go, just let it go. And we think, no, that happened to me. They said, let it, because they know in time you're going to let it go anyway,
Yep.
or it will hurt you really badly. It's like, it's the old thing. Resentments are like taking poison, hoping somebody else will die. The
Yeah.
best thing we can do for ourselves is let go. If you let go of something, you get to move on. If you hold on to it, you're stuck over time with the person. And that's why you have um, intuitives and psychics and people in the community who talk about cutting cords. It's a real thing. It's a
Yeah.
real thing. You're energetically attached to the past or past hurts. And we don't believe that because we can't see the cords. But you would be surprised at how much more relieved you would be if you would follow some of the processes.
Yeah.
You're not going to get
I
away
like
from the
what Maureen
pain.
says there. Um, that if you keep carrying the pain, it just festers and makes a deeper wound.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
very true. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
grown adults that you may meet now, whether it be friend, coworker,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, who have serious issues with certain topics or certain people or instances or whatever, a lot of times that stems back to their childhood
Mm-hmm.
of something that happened and
Mm-hmm.
they were not allowed to express it. They
Yes.
weren't allowed to talk about it. They weren't allowed to tell
Uh-huh.
anybody. Or
Uh-huh.
if they did tell somebody, they weren't believed, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so all of that hurt, all of that rage, all of those emotions get bottled up and buried
Mm-hmm.
where they just continue to eat away at you
Yes.
until something later in life will
Mm-hmm.
trigger it, and boom,
Mm-hmm.
you're right back in that same
Mm-hmm.
mindset again.
Mm-hmm.
Rape victims have a really difficult time with this,
Mm-hmm.
be they male or female,
Right.
simply because most times they aren't believed, or
Mm-hmm.
they're accused of, well, what did you do to warrant this? It's like, I ain't got nothing to do with what I did. Um, but it's the fact that they either
Mhm.
weren't believed or they weren't allowed to
Mhm.
talk about it.
Right.
Young girls who get molested or young boys who get molested who go to the other parent and say, mommy's doing this to me or daddy's doing this to me.
Right.
How the other parent reacts is going to depend on if that child deals with that issue and is able to heal from it.
People freak
Uh,
out, Sherry. People freak
yeah,
out. You ever
they
heard
do.
people you ever heard people say, "If anybody touches my child, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this." Well, I haven't seen anybody laying in the streets in large numbers. It just doesn't happen. People freak
Yeah,
out and they don't know what to do. So what does that do for a
right.
person who's trying to tell you something is going on here? It's like, well, maybe I'm wrong because I'm trying to, but
Yeah,
I think we have to speak about it because when you carry it, when you when you carry it, we think we're strong carrying the pain. It's harder to lay your burdens down,
it
but you get to
is.
walk away from them. You get to walk away from 'em. You don't walk away.
That's one of the
It's not you
main
gain.
tips that the Bible teaches, for those
Yeah,
folks that are Christians
yeah,
or just religious in whatever religion you're in. I think
yeah.
just about every religion teaches that in order to
Mm,
ascend and move higher, you
mhm.
have to let go of those burdens because they're weighing you down. If
Yeah,
you don't let
and
go of it, you're not going to be able to heal from it and go
y
forward. I mean,
and raise your vibration. Yeah, you're exactly right.
exactly.
You know one thing, Sherry? We all know this. We all know these things, but we don't know where to get started, or we say, "I'm gonna get started." Oh, you posted something else. I'll get started at this time, and we never get started.
Right. Yeah, I liked what Cheap Ass was adding there. Just wore her pain like a cloak and shield.
Mhm,
Um, always angry like the Hulk. Yeah, exactly.
mhm. Yeah,
And we
yeah,
all know people like that.
yeah. But
Bullies raise bullies. I
yeah.
mean, um,
But you know one thing, how else do you know how to operate in the world if nobody has shared with you that this can be resolved? We're
right.
usually taught to hold resentments and anger. It I mean, like, people don't say it, but it
Especially men.
directly. Yeah, they don't say it directly. They're like,
It's
"If somebody did that to me, I wouldn't ever speak to him again. I would do this, I would do that." We never hear like, "Okay, that's something you're gonna have to let go so that you can move on." We don't hear that.
yeah. Mm-mm.
But, this is from a spiritual point of view, this is all about our learning what works best for me. Because when we listen to other people, there's nothing wrong with listening to other people. You get a lot of information. You just decide what in that information is working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's uh
Mm,
it can be really, really difficult. That's where talking it out with somebody, especially somebody that's been there, that may have
mhm,
experienced something similar,
mhm,
that has moved on, can really help
mhm,
you. I mean, that's why I've always been a firm believer that substance abuse counselors should be people who've had a substance abuse
mhm.
because they understand. All right, I'm not talking about you. Um,
Go ahead, and then I'll say what I say because I've heard that. I've heard other people say that.
I just think that it allows you on a deeper level to
Mhm,
understand what that patient that's come to you
mhm,
is going through. I mean,
mhm.
I've now from a professional counseling, you're
Uh-huh.
taught how to deal with that. But when you're someone like a pastor or uh, you know, uh, 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 an intuitive, I mean, whatever, somebody that really hasn't been trained in that area, I've heard some really stupid comments made by people that talking about somebody who's an alcoholic. Well, just walk away from it. And it's like they've
Mhm.
never touched alcohol in their life. They have no clue what that addiction is like, or somebody that's addicted to crack, or somebody that's addicted to cigarettes, or, I mean,
Let me
it's
show you
not
my
just a mental thing, it's a physical thing,
let me show
as
you this.
well. Yes.
Let me show you this. Can you read that?
I am human, and I think nothing human is alien to me. Terrence.
Okay.
I like
This
that. Who's Terrence?
he was a Roman playwright, I think in 14 BC or 4 BC, something like
Oh,
that.
okay. Hi, Rose. And
This is what I
hi,
would say to
Katie.
you. It's not about having, because I was that's where I got started, alcohol and drug treatment. But I never had an addiction to chemicals, just to people and
Yeah.
codependency. What I would say to you is you can put yourself in the place of another person. But some people, the pain is so great, they resist that person. It's like, well, I can't relate to this. I don't know how this, but you can relate to it because
But
that
that's
person is a
where
human being.
training comes in handy because,
I don't
like I
think it's
said, I've
training.
known.
I don't think it's training. I think
No,
it's
okay. I
your
could be
problem.
wrong. So,
I don't. I think it's your problem is so painful that I'm going to reject you and give you a simple answer so that you can get away from me as quickly as you possibly can. That's what I think. It's like, Sherry, that's just my belief. I
okay.
believe that if I'm able to sit with my painful emotions, I can sit with somebody else. If I'm a person who I have to do something so that I don't feel, that means that how can I go in these dark places with people and they're telling me their story and I'm thinking more about me than I'm thinking about them? I
Right.
think that's a part of it. That's a part of all of our training. We have to be able to sit with a person and just hear what they say without trying to fix them. But we also have
Right.
to have, as a therapist, I believe, a counselor, mental health therapist, you have to have skills, strategies, and interventions that will help that person come out of that as quickly as possible, because
Yes.
that way they learn that, because I'm not doing it, they're doing it. And if I say, if you do these things, you will start to feel better. And then they start to realize I do have the power to feel better. That's what I believe. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that though, because I've
Yeah. I mean,
heard
because
that.
I've always, I guess, because I
Hmm.
have had an addiction problem in the past.
Hmm.
And so it's like now when I've talked with people who have an addiction problem now, and they're
Hmm.
trying to approach it from the aspect, well, you have no idea what it feels like. And, and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I do.
Hmm.
And it's something you can work through. I mean,
Right.
we
Hmm.
all have the power to heal ourselves. I'm a firm believer in that.
Hmm.
Um, some people just need more help than others, or they need
Hmm.
more outside help than others.
Hmm.
Maureen, that is horrific, my
Hmm.
darling. But again, it's how many people would not be able to get to that point.
Hmm.
And that's where a good counselor is going to help them, I feel, face that
Right.
kind of pain
Hmm.
and then move forward from it.
Right.
It's just like when you see parents of a murdered child or something that are at the trial of the person that murdered them
Hmm.
and stand up or make a statement and say, we forgive this person. And that takes a lot of
Hmm.
fortitude to bring yourself through that pain to say
Hmm.
this other person was in pain too. Telephone.
That's me. Sorry.
I know I don't have one. or my phone doesn't sound like that. So just pick it up and put it down.
I thought I had turned it on. Yeah, I like that. I like that sound.
We used to do that back in the day before there was anything else. You just
Mhm.
pick it up, put it down, disconnect them. Um,
I
but
like what Maureen is sharing because you don't realize how many people that happen to. It happens to
yeah,
people all the time, and people tend to try to ignore it, but you can gain so much strength from it. It reminds me of Maya Angelou and
I was just thinking of her.
what she went on to be able to do, but you have to be able to let it go so that you can be stronger. The biggest thing about it is if you see that person and if they see that the look in your eye has changed and you're no longer carrying their shame and guilt, they tend to back away. So I any problem that we have can be dealt with as human beings, but we just have to learn that there are people out there who can help us. And for the people who cannot help us, we have to be able to say, well, I don't think this is working out. I'll have to walk away.
Well, I know I was when I was about 12, I guess it was
Mhm.
a molestation case.
Mhm.
And I don't talk about it a whole lot, but when
Mhm.
it happened, I went
Mhm.
directly to my mother with it.
Mhm.
And her reaction immediately was, we're calling the police. We're going to go do whatever we need to do to get,
Mhm.
what this person did was wrong, and we're going to
Mhm.
make sure they get punished for it.
Mhm.
And she allowed me to continue to talk about it as time progressed
Mhm.
so that I would know that it wasn't anything I did that was wrong.
Mhm.
It was the other person that did something wrong. And so that helped me get
Yeah.
through it. Um, I had been married to my husband for probably 10, 11 years.
Mhm.
I had gone back to school. I was working on my degree. And
Mhm.
several of the classes I was taking one semester were all psych classes.
Mhm.
And one of them was child psychology. And there was a
Mhm.
group that one of the assistant deans in that college had started. And it was a group of those that were in the psychology and sociology degrees. We formed a group where we went out to like kindergartners to classes, and we would go and have talks with them about good touches and bad touches.
Mhm.
Good touches and uh-oh feelings,
Mhm.
and it was all based around this cartoon story that was done up
Mhm.
for them of a
Mhm.
squirrel with this, or squirrel, a cat, I don't know, something like that, with this amazing tail. And
Mhm.
everybody wanted to touch its tail, but that
Mhm.
was not comfortable for that
Mhm.
animal because no one asked permission to touch their tail,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And it after about the third time I went out on a thing to a classroom, it was really, it's like usually we go in and we, show the little video and we like act out
Mhm.
certain things. And most of the kids just thought it was fun. They were getting out of
Mhm.
class and they laughed and they, blah, blah, blah. And it just went, the topic just went completely over their heads. But I think it was the third time I went out with a group that there was one kid in the group, just they kept like scooting back and scooting back and scoot, because we'd have them like come sit on the floor in a
Mhm.
circle,
Mhm.
and show the video. And just looking at this child, you knew that he knew exactly what that video was talking about
Mhm.
and what we were talking about. And it was truly, my heart still hurts whenever I think about it. But I mean, it was truly astonishing to see the shift in just one child when you realized,
Mhm.
oh, he knows what we're talking about. We're
Yeah.
not talking about a damn squirrel in a cartoon, you know.
Right. Right.
And we always had a counselor that would go with us in case that happened. And
Mhm.
then that way afterwards, when we'd have after we do our little skits and show the video, and then it would be like playtime.
Mhm.
And we would all like break up and scatter around the room and talk to the kids. They would
Mhm.
have the counselor zero in on that one kid, and go off to the side to talk to them,
Mhm.
and pull it out.
Mhm.
And because the child being in the classroom surrounded by other kids who
Mhm.
were all watching and seeing the same thing,
Mhm.
it was just, and it only happened a few times that I
Mhm.
ever witnessed the, that that switch go off where you're like,
Mhm.
oh wow, that kid knows
Mhm.
what we're talking about. Like that kid really knows what we're talking about.
Mhm.
This is a 5-year-old. So it can be quite kind of unsettling.
Yeah.
And I think it was the second time it happened, and I came home, and it just kind of hit me, and I was really upset. And my husband was asking me, well, what happened today? And so I told him about the school trip and whatnot. And he got this really funny look on his face.
Mhm.
And he was like, oh, okay. And he walked away.
Mhm.
And I knew right then something wasn't right. And so
Mhm.
it took a while of me poking and prodding before he finally confessed to me
Mhm.
that he had been routinely molested by an uncle in the family,
Mhm.
and that when he told, he wasn't believed, or he was
Mhm.
accused of making up the story,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And he had been carrying that around ever since.
Yeah.
We'd been married for over 10 years at that point, had a child before something that I
Mhm.
said in telling him about that day triggered it and just brought it all to the
Mhm.
surface. And we must have spent hours talking that night, and with him just sobbing his eyes out. But it was like once we got through that night, it was like he had purged himself of that. And the next day he was better from it, because for a while I was kind of nervous talking about any of my trips that I would go on with the
Mhm.
group because I didn't want it
Mhm.
to upset him. And
Mhm.
he was like, no, I'm good now. I could tell by the way he acted that
Mhm.
had been able to purge himself,
Mhm.
but he had
Yeah.
carried that with him for like almost 30 years,
Mhm.
or probably a little over 30 years,
Mhm.
that he just couldn't discuss it. I mean, he
Mhm.
had repressed it so deeply that he really didn't even remember it. It wasn't until
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
I said triggered it, and that
Mhm.
memory came flooding back,
Mhm.
and it was really
Mhm.
rough.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's like what I went through was nothing compared to what he went through. And,
Mhm.
um, but it's not a matter of comparing either.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Both
It's all relative.
instances,
Yeah.
yeah, are just as traumatic to that particular child as any other.
Mhm.
uh, exactly, Maureen. Yeah, when children are shut down, or anybody actually. Hi, Karen. It makes it really, really difficult
Mhm.
because they're not believed. And when they're not believed, they lose trust in those
Mm.
that are supposed to take care of them.
Mhm. But you know one thing though, I would say to everybody, a big part of not believing is that if I believed you, I'd have to do something. See, your mother was like ahead of her time. It's like, oh, well, we gotta do what's appropriate. Some people don't
Yeah.
do that. They freak out and they like,
Yeah.
okay. It goes through their head just like this. If this is in a split second, if this happens, I'm supposed to call the police. If I call the police, this. And some people just, okay, I don't no, you stop
They
saying that.
just shut
Stop
down
saying
on it. Yeah.
that's it. But see, that's
Yeah.
the whole like years ago when they were talking about doing sex education in school. And so many people were, well, a lot of people, I guess I only heard the people who were against it. And I'm thinking that would be a good idea because if somebody was messing with a child, and they said, "We're just playing," and said, "No, my teacher said this is molestation. You're molesting me." That's what I'm thinking. You got to give people information.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to give.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
how many
Maureen said your
young
mom was a
women?
warrior.
Yeah.
Maureen said your mom was a warrior. She was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah. She was.
Most people would not have done that.
She was an avid uh, believer in equality for all.
Hmm.
I can't count how many marches I went on with her for civil
You
rights,
see,
women's rights, equal rights.
you
When I
see.
was a kid, um,
Hmm.
she didn't she didn't put up with any of it, and I thoroughly believe because she went through a lot of it herself as a child,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that was her way of dealing with it, was to prevent it from trying to happen to anybody
Hmm.
else. That
Yeah.
was her
Hmm.
release from that. Um, I know, just it's. I think that's my personal opinion is I think that's probably one of the hardest things for a child,
Hmm.
especially, is to
Hmm.
not be believed.
Hmm.
Hell, even grown women who get attacked
Yeah.
and or raped have a hard time getting people to
Hmm.
believe them when they go and tell, you know, and they're still treated like they're the ones at fault. I mean, we have gotten better at that over the years, but we're
Hmm.
still not there yet as a society. Um,
Hmm.
it makes it really difficult. And again, I think that's the importance of finding a good counselor
Hmm.
is you match yourself for, and you may have to go through several counselors before you find the right one
Hmm.
that matches up with the kind of counseling you need, you know.
Hmm. You can ask the question. Uh, how are we going to deal? How are we going to deal with? I don't know how we're going to deal with this. What is your plan? Because a counselor is supposed to have a treatment plan. They're supposed to put a plan together about this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And
Yeah.
it should be what would I say? The transparent. Uh, you can ask questions or what I don't know why are we doing this. I don't know if it's going to help me or not. Ask the questions because most counselors are going to try to explain what it is and why we're going to do this to get at this or whatever. Because I do a lot of experiential work. I do a lot of I'm not just going to talk to a person and try to get them to feel good. I'm going to get them to do something so that they can start feeling good and they realize they have the power to change themselves. Some people, it's going to be different. You're going to have to talk to them longer for them to get comfortable. Some people, I will give them, I'll just pile it on what they're supposed to do. And then some people, I'm just going to give them a bit so that they can go a little bit at a time. Just different for everybody. But it's
Yeah.
it's worth it. We're dealing with it anyway.
Yeah. I
Think about it.
mean,
You're going to deal with it anyway. You might as well deal with it in an appropriate manner than to deal with it in a way that's going to be destructive. We're dealing with it anyway.
I would rather deal with it in a way of unburdening myself from it so that it no
Hmm.
longer keeps me confined from doing things that I want to do.
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so it and again, I think that's why it's so important to find a good counselor. And
Hmm.
I've known people that have gone to counselors a couple of times and then they're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again because whatever it was they were expecting,
Hmm.
the counselor wasn't meeting
Hmm.
that need
Hmm.
or helping bring them to the point to realize that's not really their job to
Hmm.
fix you. Their job is to
Hmm.
help you fix you, right?
Hmm.
I mean, isn't that the whole point of counseling is so that
Yeah.
you can work through the issue and
Hmm.
basically fix yourself, because we
I
all have
think.
that ability. And
Hmm.
some people turn to religion, some people
Yeah.
unfortunately turn to drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
Some people become what it is that they hate.
Hmm.
It can be a real
Hmm.
it can be a real issue, and that's why I
Hmm.
think it's so important. And through it all, in my opinion, there is never any reason to check out.
Hmm. Mm-mm.
There's
No.
always tomorrow. There's always the next day.
Hmm.
There's always, the next week, the next month. Each
Hmm.
day you walk through and get through, the stronger you become. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's and like I said, there's a lot of people that are really freaking out right about now. So
Hmm.
it's important um that they're able to know that there are others around them that are there to support them.
Hmm.
I think sometimes that's what I've always felt like a support group was for, is just so
Hmm. Hmm.
there's somebody there that's going to be
Hmm.
there to support you
Hmm.
through this.
Hmm.
If you fall apart, there's somebody there to pick you up off the floor
Hmm. Well,
and tell you it's going to be okay. So,
in my life, I realized that falling apart is no longer an option. I have to do the next thing that's going to put me in a place where I feel like I've done the best for myself. Because
mhm,
and that's what I try to get people that I work with to, I mean, people that I counsel. I say work with because I am working with them, uh, to see in themselves. Falling apart is not an option. It's about how
mhm,
do I validate myself. Is this real, what I'm feeling? And is there a reason for it? But what do I need to do to move on?
yeah,
That's what I would encourage, because that's what we all have to do. You can
right,
move, think about it. If there is something that's happened in our lives and we think, okay, I'm upset about this, but in this many years, I will have resolved it or whatever. You can start resolving it earlier than that. It's about, y'all, it's really about feeling your feelings and putting and saying, okay, this is my sadness. I feel sad about uh having to end a friendship, but I'll move on. But when you are not aware of your emotions and how you respond to them, any
yeah,
sadness will connect to a sadness from the past, and it's almost like it's a chain linking, and you're drag it's these, like one of those on those big ships, and you just keep linking chains and you just keep pulling them around. So
yeah,
what I would say to you is learn that your feelings will pass. You will be sad, you will get over it, it will pass, and you move on to do something that is, do the next right thing. Do what is best for you.
right.
It's about, y'all, it's about dealing with stuff. It's not about sweeping it under the rug. You got to
The
deal
first
with it
thing you
anyway.
almost said was probably
Stuff.
right.
Stuff.
I know what you wanted to
I'm
have
on
come
your
out your
show. I'm
mouth.
going to be respectful.
You can't fool me. I know what was about to come out your mouth.
I know,
That's
right?
what see, that's what I mean. We are so on the same page, it's almost eerie
Yeah.
sometimes. It's like um but yeah, so and wow, y'all have really in the chat. I mean,
Yeah.
y'all have really touched my heart. There have been some people
Hmm.
that have really shared some
Hmm.
really rough stuff, and I
Hmm.
picked a few things out that were that
Yeah.
weren't quite as bad as some of the
Mhm.
others, simply because I didn't want to have it up there for the
Mhm.
world to see. I
Mhm.
mean, um, but I love the fact that I'm also seeing a whole lot of love and hugs and support
Mhm.
coming from
And
everybody else, you
and you know,
know?
for all the people who shared, what I would say to you is, and Maureen pops up. When you are in therapy, and this is what I used to tell the men that I work with in the facility that I worked in. You're so open because you're around that environment where people
Yeah,
ask you something, you share. When What I would encourage them to do is when you leave here, decide how you're going to put your information out there. Because
yeah,
some people, when you start sharing with them, they start like, "Ooh, that's too much information." Share your information in a way that is respectful to you, and in a way that sometimes you can share information in a way that it does not welcome any questions. And what I mean by that is, yes, I've had a lot of difficult situations in my life, a lot that I've overcome, but I'm not in the, I'm not willing to talk to anybody about that. But I have made a lot of improvements in my life. You start to learn to tell your story in the way you want it to come back to you.
yeah,
That's what I would say to you. Because when it comes back, if somebody says, "Oh, I heard that this so and so and so and so," it sounds like gossip.
yeah,
So you put your story out there the way you want it to come back. Because just because you're sharing your story with some people just want to hear, and they don't gain anything from it. But what I would say is be kind to yourself and start to tell your story the way you want to hear it come back.
well, and it puts you in control,
Yes. Mhm.
and I think that's another important thing, is putting yourself in control
Mhm.
of your narrative.
Yes. Yes.
What is the thing that, what is the point of, um, trying to heal if you can't be in control of what you're willing to share? Um, and I like what, who was it that said it? Oh, Maureen. Here we go.
Mhm.
That she learned in boot camp. It's okay to cry, just don't wallow in it. Go wash your face and it'll be okay, you know. That's
Mhm.
kind of a 30-second instant
Mhm.
response to someone,
Mhm.
but it also makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, this happened. Now deal with it and get back to it. And the sooner you go back to a normality, I think, the sooner you start healing. Um, because you're no longer,
Mhm.
I know people who deal with who've had things happen, who have put it out, seen a counselor, whatever, to deal with it, and then 2 days later they're taking it back and
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
regurgitating it all over again.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's like, when you put it out there, let it go. Let it go. Don't keep bringing it back, you know.
Mhm.
Um, cut that cord, as they say, I mean, isn't that what they
Mhm.
do when a baby's born? That that the baby is relied upon its mother for all of its nourishment. What's one of the first things they do is they cut the cord.
Mhm.
That's you're
Mhm.
now your own
Mhm.
entity.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
don't need to be hooked up to mama to get all your nourishment anymore. I mean, you
Mhm.
still do technically
Mhm.
with breast milk and everything, but you're not attached in that way. And, I guess I don't know if I'm expressing this correctly. But to me, that kind of is a snapshot of what it is to cut the cord. You
Mhm.
you cut that off, and it's like, okay, that's there, this is here, and neither the two shall meet. So and it's the same when we share things with people, and they, like Isaac said, they start backing up like, oh, because it could be triggering something in them that they're not ready to face yet. Like what happened with me and my husband, and I'm just sharing what happened, and it big time trigger. And it made me walk on eggshells around him for the longest time, because I was afraid I would bring up more pain. It took a while for him to say, I'm fine now, just go back to normal,
Right.
And but that's part of when it's somebody we care about, whether a spouse, a family member, a friend, whatever, that I think that's what's so important with just going back to normal. It's like, not that you're ignoring what's going on, but they've released it, they've let it go. Now you let it go. You don't need to keep dragging it back up. So
one thing, Sherry, I think people drag things back up because they're trying to figure them out. We have this question in our mind: why did that happen to me? Why, if I had done this, or if I had not done that? If it's the questions that we need to ask what allowed this to happen in my life? What happened? Tell you know what happened, what allowed it to happen, and where do I go from here? Because when you can start answering those, you cannot answer a why question, because you're going to come up with all these other scenarios. But when you start looking at the reality, is sometimes it's like, oh, my mother was working 2 jobs and we had to stay with this person or whatever. Those are the sort of things that brings it into reality. And because we think things like this, somehow in our mind, we change it like it just happened out of the blue. But there were realistic reasons for why things happen to us in our lives. And when we can deal with it from a reality orientation, we can also learn to let other things go more quickly. And that may be why sometimes we don't let things go, because we're trying to resolve them, or we're trying to, I guess, work it out in our mind. It's like we can't understand. But I think those questions will help.
Yeah, because I think it's always Sandra's right. Sometimes it just pops up when you think you've worked through it. There still may be little tendrils of stuff, that pop up, and suddenly that memory comes back. I mean, it's the same.
I got a good analogy for that.
Okay.
And this is what I tell people. Okay, we're going to look at it. We're going to, the letter writing thing, we do all that. I say, we're going to look at it. It's like moving around from place to place and accumulating things. And you don't have so you move in your new place, but you don't have a storage shed. So you're using the garage, and you have some boxes of things that you're not going to use. So you put them in the garage, you stack them against the wall. Pretty soon you're storing everything in the garage: problems, things from the past, torn and tattered boxes, new boxes. Pretty soon it's so cluttered you can't park in there. So you open the door, it's so chaotic, you just throw boxes in, you don't even want to go in. But when you start straightening out your life, you start looking at one thing at a time, and you put it in its place. It's like building shelves, stacking it up on the wall. May not be nice, but you say, okay, I remember that. This is the way I dealt with it, and this is where I'm going from here. When you can put everything in its place, you can see it and you can let it go. It's not about never seeing it again. We do not forget. Most people think, I just want to forget. I just want to forget. We don't forget. We do things not to remember. We may drink. We may shop. We may exercise. it's not you don't forget. We just do things not to remember. So
Yeah.
if there's a difficult part, place, a point in my life, I look at it, and if it pops back up, and I I let it go in all directions of time and space. I let it go again. But it may be popping up at a time, sort of like to realign me or something. I don't know. So that's
Yeah.
that's
I
what I
mean,
would say to you.
that's very true. I mean, it's like walking to a hoarder's house, say,
Mm-hmm.
and it's overwhelming. And
Mm-hmm.
people that hoard,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times that's not their original intention.
Mm-mm.
Um, but then it gets so out of hand that they're not able to deal with it to clean it up. Uh,
If I have to look at all of this and I keep telling myself I need to straighten this up, I don't have to straighten myself up.
yeah,
If the environment was clean, you'd have to look at yourself.
yeah.
But you got
It's
something else
easier
to
to
look
keep
at.
it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the point where you are ready to deal with it and clean it up, you look in the room and it's like overwhelming, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
and the response is, I can't do, I'll never be able to deal with this.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just taking it one little section at a time, or,
Mm.
one
And
room at a time.
you're dealing with it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You might as well deal with
Exactly.
it in a way that's growth producing. We deal sometimes, but you know one thing, I I don't have any problem with people who did what they had to do to survive, or put it in the
Right.
push it down, whatever. I don't have any problem with that. We all deal with things in different ways. I think there's very few of us who says, "Oh, this happened to me. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to let it go." Uh, it it usually doesn't happen that way. It's we're in the earth school. We're in a learning environment. We have to learn these things. That's what I think. We
Well,
can't
it's
beat
just like
ourselves up.
people who want to get revenge all the time. Even
Mhm.
once they get that revenge, it doesn't satisfy the hurt that they felt, because
Mhm.
they've still not dealt with what the issue was
Mhm.
to them, you know.
Yeah. Mhm.
And having revenge on someone,
Mhm.
most people discover,
Mhm.
doesn't fix anything, you know.
Uh-uh. Mm-mm.
Just adds to the issue, just adds to the
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, she passed. You're right. Yeah, people tend to hoard if they're poor, because you never know when you might need it again.
Mhm.
Um, that's how a lot of things start like that.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't want to
Yeah.
throw that out because I could use that again, so I'll put it
Mhm.
up,
Mhm.
and then it
Yeah.
sits in a box for 40 years, and you finally open the box and go, "Oh, I
Mhm.
forgot that was in there."
Yeah. People who grew up in the depression, they would save everything. People
Yeah,
who and their children would do things like that. Uh, it's not, one thing, it's not about the behaviors. It's about us looking at the behaviors, seeing where they came from, and asking ourselves, are they necessary now? Do I need this? Can I change? Can I do something different?
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
That's the important part. And going forward, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be really kind of freaked out and hurting.
Hmm.
And so, y'all have all had a mini course today, from a master class from Isaac of how to deal with stuff. So you know what to do, or what to say, or at least how to maybe make a right step to help somebody deal with something, even
Hmm.
if it's an irrational fear. Right
Hmm.
now, I think we have a lot of people with a lot of irrational fears of things that could possibly happen,
Hmm.
that is so terrifying to them that
Yeah.
they've become immobilized.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who may have been through something similar in their past, or maybe got away from a country or something that seems to be in the direction where we're headed. And they're like, oh my God, I've just escaped that. How can I go through it again?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it immobilizes them.
Yeah.
Or it causes rash decisions, rash responses, instead
Mm-hmm.
of taking that breath and saying, okay, wait. I mean, if they're knocking at your door, run like hell. I have no problem with that. Get the hell out, whatever. But in the meantime, freaking out before anything even happens is not going to help anybody. It is, yeah, Sandra, you're right. Paralysis. It paralyzes you from being able to deal with what we need to deal with and
Mm-hmm.
to move forward from there. And as most of you have found out, if you start DMing me like crazy, I do respond. I don't ignore them. Sometimes it might take me a few hours if I'm at work, and I just
Mm-hmm.
can't respond in the moment. But I try to respond to everybody that sends me messages and stuff. And I do read all the comments and everything. And I'll go in and heart them if nothing else, just because I don't have time to sit and respond to each one.
Mm-hmm.
But I do read all of them. And there's a lot of times y'all say stuff that's just like, wow. I mean, talk about affirming for me, especially if I'm having a really needy kind of day. It's kind of nice to read, so don't stop. You
Mm-hmm.
can always send acclamations anytime you want. Or
Mm-hmm.
that's not the right word I'm looking for, but y'all know what I mean. I can't think of anything else. I mean, Isaac, anything else you think we should touch on real quick? I mean, we've been at this almost an hour and 10 minutes. So,
I like Maureen's uh, statement there that we have each other
yeah,
and we're
yeah,
stronger when we're together. Stand
exactly.
in the light. Practice
That's what I've
self-care.
been trying to get across to everybody since Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
We're all together here. We just got to
Yeah.
hang on to each other,
Yes.
Uh,
Keep reminding each other that, hey, it's tough, but it's doable. We can do this.
and there's enough people in this community that if you really need somebody to talk to, you can reach out to them and someone will have 10 minutes that they can,
Mm-hmm.
pick up the phone and talk to you, Um, so, don't ever think you're all alone. There's a lot of us out here that be more than willing to
Yeah.
talk you down from something or help you work through something. So, um, we're all in it together. We're going to get through
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
It's it's going to be okay. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah.
It will get better. I
Mm-hmm.
promise.
Yeah.
May get worse before it gets better. So be prepared for that. But it will get better. It
Mm-hmm.
just may take time. So, that's all I can think of at this point.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much talked our way out
Yeah.
the door. So,
Mm-hmm.
just keep holding on, keep loving
Yeah.
each other. Um, just let each other know, hey, I'm here. If you need me, holler.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
give a shout out, whatever. And we're gonna get through it.
Yeah. Take care of yourself.
We're a very resilient people.
Yes.
Human beings have lasted for what, 4,000 years now, something like that, 5,000 years now that we're aware of. Probably a lot longer than that, but that they
Mhm,
technically say that's kind of when we kind of came about.
mhm.
Um, and I think we're going to be here a whole heck of a lot longer
I
still.
do too.
So
I do too.
um, sometimes the climate just changes a little bit.
Mhm.
There again, we adapt and we learn
Yeah.
to muddle through and come out the other side. So
Mhm.
y'all have a great week. And I got a members video I need to make. So I'm gonna say adios for now, and or bonsoir as we say around here. Y'all have a good week.
Yes.
Isaac, thank you again for your expertise and your willingness to share it.
Oh,
And
I enjoyed
guys,
this.
we've got our very own counselor. How lucky can we be? I mean, and we're not paying him anything, and he still shows up. So,
Yeah, this is my thing. This is what I'm able to do.
that's it. And we love you for it. So,
Thank you.
all right, I'm gonna quit yakking. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Thank y'all
Goodbye,
for
everybody.
sharing. Thank y'all for all you do.